So I was originally going to make my video about Furuta. I was just recording it, and I didn't really like the way how it turned out. So instead, I'm going to spend this time talking about Saiko. And for the people that are wondering, like, why haven't I really uploaded anything for like the past week? I've been sick. I've been sick. I've had a sore throat, and it just hasn't been good. I haven't really been able to talk as well as I could. Even right now, I'm still a little bit sick, but I feel a lot better in comparison to the way how I did earlier in the week. So my apologies for not uploading that, and I kind of started college this week, so it's been a tough week for me. But anyways, I digress. Let's actually go on to the video. So the thing that I do want to talk about today is Saiko Yonebayashi. Now, let me just say right now, out of all the characters in Tokyo Ghoul, Saiko by far has probably my favorite name to pronounce out of all the characters in TG. Like, I don't know why. Yonebayashi is such a cool last name. I just really like it. But back to what I was saying before. So this video, I guess, in some ways is sort of going to be a character analysis talking about Saiko, but there really isn't a whole lot to talk about when it comes to Saiko's character progression. Now, let me just say immediately that that doesn't mean necessarily that Saiko is a really simplistic character or, you know, she's very easy to understand. That's not necessarily it. It's more on the lines of the fact that Saiko as a character doesn't really have that much screen time. So in comparison to other characters I have talked about on this channel, for example, like Tsukiyama or Kaneki or even Toka, Saiko simply doesn't have as much screen time as these other characters for me to kind of delve through and explain Saiko as a character and her progression and the way how certain people treat her. Now, the way how Saiko is presented throughout the course of the Tokyo Ghoul story, I do think is very interesting, because among all the Quinks members, she is by far the one who's treated the most as kind of like a child and sort of the baby of the Quinks family. Now, when it comes to regards of her relationship with Kaneki, however, the way how Kaneki treats Saiko is very similar to the way how he treats many of the, you know, the women in his life who are not Toka. And like, I've made videos kind of talking about this sort of, but the way how Kaneki demonstrates himself with certain women throughout the story of Tokyo Ghoul is very different. The way how he looks towards Akira, it's the utmost amount of respect. He is very formal with her, and he treats her the same way as a child would treat their mother. And you see this as well a little bit when it comes to Eto. He is very, well, he's not, I can't say very fond of her, but he is fond of Eto. He does respect her as an author, and he is very formal with her the same way how he is with Akira. Now, in the case with Toka, obviously he loves Toka. He's a lot more, not necessarily formal, he's a lot more casual with her. And you, like, I can make a separate video just talking about Token, like, if I'm being real. I'm not going to get into that here. But the way how Kaneki talks to Saiko is very similar to the way how you see Kaneki later, I guess, interacting with someone like his daughter, Ichika, and also the way how he, you know, talks to Hinami. Mainly when it comes to the relationship between him and Hinami is very similar to his relationship with him and Saiko. And this is demonstrated very well during the fight between Kaneki and Takizawa, or Heise and Takizawa, more like it. And you have where, during the scene, like, you have the whole entire iconic scene where Saiko shows up and she's like, please don't go, and she's like crying. And you have where Hinami's also there staring at Kaneki. And I feel like in this scene, Sui Ishida depicts this very well, where the way how Heise and Kaneki both look at these two women in their life is almost the exact same, where he both looks at them as somewhat the little sibling figure that he wants to take care of, and he is willing to, you know, fight and even sacrifice his life for. And I feel like this is kind of a connection that a lot of people do not really talk too much about, and really undermine quite a bit when it comes to the story of Tokyo Ghoul. I mean, realistically, even if you look at the end of the Tokyo Ghoul manga, Saiko happens to be one of the first people to actually witness Kaneki waking up alongside Toka. And I feel like Suishida put that in there for a reason, because Kaneki's relationship with Saiko is a lot more close than what a lot of people kind of give it credit for. Obviously, I would say that her connection with Ure and also Mutsuki is specified upon way more than Kaneki, but they are definitely very, very close. Now, another aspect of Saiko that I do feel like is shown quite a bit too is the fact that for the vast majority of the story, it's very well, depicted that Saiko is not a fighter. even though she does have a lot of latent power within her, a lot of potential, she doesn't really like to fight. She's very lazy. She's kind of like your stereotypical otaku, if we're being real. She prefers to eat. She prefers to sit at home all day playing video games, reading manga, watching anime, etc. This has been noted by Sui Shiro. Like, I mean, if you're an anime fan, like, Saiko might be the best waifu for you. I'm just saying. But continuing on, like, she doesn't like to fight. She's very lazy, and this purely comes from the fact of her backstory. Unfortunately, this was skipped upon, I believe, in the anime. They didn't bring this up, but in the manga, it's specified upon that Saiko has a twin brother, and her twin brother were, well, Saiko in particular was sent into CCG. Well, her and her brother were both sent into CCG, but Saiko was sent into the Quinks program in order to gain more money for her family. Her mother took all the money and kind of just abandoned Saiko. So Saiko was kind of forced into CCG and to be an investigator against her own will. And this isn't really something that we've seen within the Tokyo Ghoul story too much. I believe Saiko might be the only person who's done this, but most of the people who are in CCG have either are fighting as a member of CCG simply because they were raised to do that, like in the case of Akira, or they have some type of really strong will or drive of justice to kind of push them forward and want to climb through the ranks, like what we've seen in the case with Amon and also Ure. And then you also have other cases where it's like your family's either killed by, quote unquote, killed by a ghoul, or like, you know, you're orphaned and pretty much CCG takes you in. And then we see this in the case with like Mutsuki and Kuro and Nashiro. So yeah, that is something that it has been shown within Tokyo Ghoul. Now, when it comes to that aspect of the story, though, I do feel like it is really cool because it does kind of showcase a difference among Saiko in comparison to any other investigator within CCG, and I guess a type of thing that kind of allows the reader to relate a lot with Saiko, especially when you come from the aspect of, you know, for example, getting your first job. Getting your first job, a lot of times you don't really want this job. It's a job that you have to have in order to just kind of get the money to pay the bills, or your parents are forcing you to do it. So I feel like a lot more people, younger people, can relate with Saiko, where it's like, yeah, I can understand the feeling of doing a job that you don't really want to do. And it's really appealing and definitely worthwhile when you actually get to see Saiko have the will to fight after the events of Shirazu's death, and she's actually willing to put in the effort and be a lot more active as an investigator due to the fact that she wants to honor the life that, you know, Shirazu pretty much gave her by, you know, sacrificing himself to save all of his friends and all the investigators who happen to be in that area, including the members of the Quink Squad, as well as a few other people like, I actually don't remember all the people who were there. It was that one guy who, I always forget what his name is. He's not important, but I might put him on the side of the screen, like, in this video when I'm editing it, whatever. But, like, I always forget his freaking name. But he's the dude with, like, his eyes always closed. I believe his name was Ito, I think. I think his name was Ito. Or I don't remember. But, continuing on. You have where seeing Saiko actually go in later on, especially during the events of Ure eventually framing out, and her actually being the one to step forward and confront Ure, which, mind you, at this point in time, Ure is most likely the strongest Quinks member there, beside either him or Mutsuki, I guess, is kind of up for debate. I don't really want to get into that, but I might do that as a future versus battle at one point. But you have where she's actually willing to kind of step up to the plate and fight Ure, especially in a state where he's unable to really, you know, differentiate, you know, friend from foe, is just really cool. And you even have where during this fight, Saiko gets stabbed, and I believe she also gets, like, gutted by Ure. And despite all of this, she doesn't hold any type of ill will towards him. You have where she still looks at Ure as someone who's very precious to her, and I just really like that aspect to her character, because despite all the crap that kind of gets flung in Saiko's direction, she always kind of remains the same throughout the course of the story. She's always very sympathetic towards people. She's always very forgiving towards people. And she never, throughout the story, seems to be one of those characters who is very, I guess, judgmental and also very discriminatory towards ghouls. Because you have where there's some scenes where even despite certain things happening, Saiko has been shown to be very split. For example, in the case with Amon, you have where Amon ends up fighting the Quink Squad during the events of Rue Island, and you have where during this time, that she's fighting, you know, that she has to end up kind of going against Amo, and she's the one who's left to kind of, I believe she does the finishing blow on him, and she's left very split, where she's like, you're the one who saved my life against Shikore, and then here I have to be the one to take you down. And you also see this later on with her feelings towards Kaneki, where after, you know, the pretty messed up things that Kaneki said towards Ure, and also the fact that he completely abandoned the Quink Squad after the event of, you know, him getting his memories back and becoming quote-unquote red-haired Kaneki, the Black Reaper, you have where Saiko doesn't seem to hold any type of resentment towards Kaneki. If anything, she just really misses him. And I feel like her, among all the other members of the Quink Squad, handled that very differently. You have where Ure has a lot of resentment. He's like, you know, Heise abandoned us, screw him. Like, he's the epitome of scum, like, F Heise. And then you have where Saiko is just kind of like, I really miss him. And you have where Mutsuki kind of... we all know what happened to Mutsuki. I'm not even going to get into that. So, yeah. I personally really like Saiko, and I just wanted to make this video kind of delving into her character and talking about her quite a bit. So, yeah, that's kind of all for this video. Thank you for watching. Remember to comment, subscribe as always, guys. I love you all. Jalen Hawk signing out. See you guys.